Welcome to Time Traveling Team, the podcast where we review every episode of Doctor Who right from the very beginning. I'm Paddy.
This week we arrive in the frozen trading colony of Iceworld, where the Doctor and Mel run into an old acquaintance and make a new friend as they investigate the mystery of the Dragonfire. As usual, we will be discussing the Doctor, companions, and villains, and giving our thoughts on the story as a whole.
And as always, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this story. So in order to join in the discussion, you can check us out on our socials. That's at Time Team. So that's TIMETEAMP. Or you can email us at timetravelingteam@teamproductions.com. So here we are in the Sylvester section that Trish already knew.
Yay!
She's back on familiar territory. She's out of the darkness.
I would say, it's like, I've already seen these, but I'm trying to remember. I think it would have been 2021 or 2022.
It was during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think I finished it before the end of 2022 because I don't think I watched it when I moved out.
No. I think you watched, if I remember rightly, I think you watched Curse of Fenric on a Christmas morning or something like that, or a Christmas.
Probably. It was over Christmas break, I know, definitely.
Yeah.
Was it when I was on my sabbatical?
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, so it was Christmas of 2020 into 2021.
Yeah, no, I remember, yeah. Because I think you sent me like screenshots of it or something. Just like, you're like, what the fuck is going on? I'm just amazed that you. Oh no, because I think I had to text you ahead of time with like, "Oh, greatest show in the galaxy, beware of clowns."
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
Yep.
Okay, but that's not the point of this section of the podcast.
It's not.
We can talk more about my thoughts on it when I first saw it later on. This section, though, is about our story summary. And so, Paddington, if you wouldn't mind closing out the season with the story summary of Dragonfire, please.
I will indeed. Part 1. In a large refrigerated chamber, a group of people are led in by a pair of armed guards. The officer in charge, Krakauer, welcomes them to their new lives as mercenaries under the command of someone named Kane. One of the people says they were tricked into service, but Krakauer says that they've been bought and paid for. Krakauer then orders the group to be placed into cryogenic suspension. However, one of the men steals a weapon from one of the guards and flees down a corridor. Krakauer calls off the pursuit, saying that he has fled into the restricted zone and will soon die. Inside the restricted zone, the man accidentally drops his gun into a vat of liquid nitrogen when he is confronted by another man. The man casually takes out the gun, seemingly being impervious to the effects of the chemical. He then grabs the runaway's face, who dies as a result of acute frostburn. Elsewhere, the Doctor and Mel arrive on Iceworld, a trading colony on the dark side of the planet Svartos. The Doctor says that he's been tracking a strange signal and has come to investigate it. Mel seems unimpressed with the frigid locale, but the Doctor says to give it a chance. They enter a nearby cafe and order some drinks, but as they go in to take a table, they encounter Sablon Glitz, their old acquaintance from the Doctor's trial on Gallifrey. He gives them a warm welcome and asks them if they can help with a problem that he is facing due to his current job, which he says is putting his life at risk. Before he can give them any details, guards from the underground refrigerated chamber arrive and apprehend Glitz. Mel tries to intervene, telling them that Glitz has told them everything about his secret mission. However, the leader of the guards, Balaj, says that she doesn't know anything about a secret mission and instead says that he owes money to her employer, Kane, which he took under false pretenses. The Doctor says that Glitz should pay back the money, but he says that he is broke after losing it in a game of cards. Balaj says that his ship will be impounded and he will lose it if he cannot repay it in time. A short while later, Mel overhears a teenage waitress muttering a curse about a dragon at her boss, and she asks her more about it. The waitress says that there are rumours of a dragon that stalks the underground passages of Iceworld. Mel realises that this is what the Doctor has come to see, and he enthusiastically talks about the legend. The waitress asks to come along with him in their search, and when the Doctor agrees, she says they can also search for the treasure that is rumoured to be guarding. Glitz says it is just a fairy tale, but the waitress says that Glitz has been marking off areas of a map, revealing that he has already been searching for the treasure. Unbeknownst to them, however, the map is a fake that Glitz was supposed to find after the card game, which was rigged by Kane. Kane explains to Balaj that he wants Glitz to go looking for the treasure and is part of his plan, as was forcing Glitz to sell his crew to Kane's men earlier. Balaj mentions about the Doctor and Mel joining him, but Kane says that they are no concern for the time being. Back at the cafe, the Doctor examines the map, and Glitz insists it is a genuine map from a reliable source. However, under persistent questioning from Mel and the waitress, who reveals her name as Ace, Glitz reveals that he won it in another poker game. Ace says that the areas shown on the map are notorious for their dangers, but seems excited at the prospect of going. The Doctor prefers to leave with Mel and Ace, but Glitz holds the map hostage and refuses to go unless the girls stay behind. Ace angrily storms off, and Mel says that she will go after her while telling the Doctor to go on ahead with Glitz. Their departure is reported to Kane, who orders Balazs to keep an eye on them, informing her that there's a tracking device embedded in the map. Balazs asks that once Glitz is dead if she can have his impounded ship, but Kane threatens to kill her if she attempts to leave, saying that she belongs to him. He then orders the ship to be destroyed. Kane then goes into a cryopod, and once he is locked inside, Balazs calls the demolition team to say that Kane has changed his mind. Back at the cafe, Ace's frustration comes to a head when dealing with a snobbish customer, and she dumps a milkshake on her. The manager, having had enough of her insubordinate behaviour, fires her and orders her and Mel to leave. As she goes, Ace dumps a milkshake on him as well before taking Mel with her back to her apartment. In her apartment, Ace angrily gives out about Glitz, but Mel's trying to find a place to sit in the messy room, says that he isn't that bad. Ace then reveals that she comes from Perryville, a small town in England, and she was caught in a time storm that brought her to Iceworld. Mel asks about trying to get her home to her family, and Ace angrily says that she has no family and doesn't want to go back. They then hear an announcement requesting emergency personnel, and Ace says there must be about an ice jam blocking the main docking bay. She then packs up some of her belongings, including several canisters of a homemade explosive called Nitro 9, an advanced form of nitroglycerin, before leading Mel outside. They head to the docking bay, and Ace casually uses some of the Nitro 9 to blow open the ice jam. A few moments later, Balazs arrives and has Mel and Ace arrested. They are taken to see Kane, who shows an interest in Ace's knowledge of chemistry and her defiant nature. Ace is nearly drawn in by his hypnotic presence, but Mel breaks the spell on her, and Ace brandishes a can of Nitro 9, threatening to use it unless she and Mel are allowed to go free. Kane says that they can't escape him, but stays back as Ace continues to hold the Nitro 9 before she and Mel flee through the nearby cavern tunnels. Mel wonders about the dragon, but Ace says it is just a fairy tale. However, Mel screams when she sees a large reptilian creature approach them. Meanwhile, the Doctor and Glitz make their way through the various caverns using the map. The Doctor is amazed at the geological wonders of the caves, whilst Glitz wonders about their monetary value. As they continue on, the Doctor and Glitz get separated, and the Doctor finds himself on a bridge spanning a deep chasm. He looks over the edge and thinks he sees a way into a tunnel below, and he climbs over the railing. However, he miscalculates the foothold and dangles precariously over the edge, grabbing the ledge with his umbrella for dear life. Part 2. Glitz arrives and reveals to the Doctor that he hasn't found any sign of the treasure or the dragon. The Doctor exasperatedly offers his sympathies before begging for help, which Glitz nonchalantly agrees to. He makes his way down to a lower level and helps the Doctor down. Meanwhile, Mel grabs Ace and they flee from the dragon, who fires laser beams from its eyes. Back at the control center, Kane berates Balazs for not properly searching Mel and Ace when they were captured and warns her against further failures. He then opens up the cryopods containing Glitz's former crew, saying that he will use them to hunt down Glitz and the Doctor, now that they are fully brainwashed into serving him. Kane then goes back into his own cryo room, and Balazs goes to the tracking station, where she listens in to Glitz and the Doctor's conversation. Glitz tells the Doctor that Kane is a ruthless man and not to be underestimated. He says that he should try and get to his spaceship and use it to escape, but the Doctor says he wants to continue his search for the dragon, highlighting its scientific importance. Glitz blackmails him by saying that he will give the Doctor the map if he helps him get back to his ship. Reluctantly, the Doctor agrees and they make their way back to the docking bays. A short while after they leave, Mel and Ace arrive and spot the Doctor's umbrella still on the ledge. Mel says that he must have gone down to the lower level, and Ace takes a rolled-up ladder from her backpack to help them get down. The Doctor and Glitz arrive at the docking bay and find a single guard at the door. Glitz tells the Doctor to go distract him whilst he goes on to the ship. The Doctor then engages the guard in a philosophical discussion, but gets taken aback by the guard's eagerness. Glitz manages to sneak on board and prepares to leave, but Balazs appears from the shadows and holds a gun on him, saying that only one of them can escape on the ship. The Doctor enters and asks how Balazs plans to escape Kane's power. While she is distracted, Glitz manages to disarm her and tells the Doctor that they should leave. However, the Doctor says Glitz needs to settle his debt with Kane or he will never be rid of him. Back in the tunnels, Mel and Ace try to follow the Doctor's trail, but they encounter the brainwashed crew and flee as the crew tries to capture them. Mel takes over the Nitro 9 canisters and throws them at the pursuing crew, and all but one of them are killed. Mel and Ace continue to escape, arrive at a metal staircase, and Mel trips and stuns herself. Ace takes her into hiding as the last crew member continues to search for them. Elsewhere, the Doctor and Glitz continue to search for the dragon and encounters a reptile from the tunnels, which fires its laser eyes at them, forcing them to retreat out of the chamber they entered. Glitz goes to shoot at it, but the Doctor stops him when he sees the dragon has stopped pursuing them. Meanwhile, in the control chamber, Balazs talks to Krakauer and says they need to kill Kane or will use them until they are dead. He reluctantly asks how she intends to kill him, and she reveals that Kane cannot stand heat and needs to be periodically going back into his own cryopod, as even Iceworld is still too warm for him. Back at the staircase, Ace is telling her a bit more about herself. She says that she was expelled from school after damaging it doing a science experiment. She then got a job as a waitress, but never felt like she truly belonged, and thought that she must be from somewhere else in outer space. She then sadly comments on the irony of having become a waitress again in space. She also reveals that her real name is Dorothy, and says that she feels her real name is Ace. They then continue their search for the Doctor and eventually encounter him and Glitz in the tunnels. They each reveal their encounter with the dragon, and the Doctor says that they should go back and investigate it further. Before they can go, though, the last crew member appears and Glitz tries to reason with him, but to no avail, as the Doctor says the cryogenic process has wiped his memory. However, the crew member recounts how Glitz always cheated the crew and finally sold them to Kane. He prepares to kill them, but he is shot by the dragon. The Doctor says they mean it no harm, and it summons them to follow it. In his private quarters, Kane speaks to an ice sculptor of his former mate, Zana, promising to honor her memory when he returns to their home planet. He then goes into his cryopod. A short while later, Krakauer enters and tampers with the temperature controls, raising the heat in the room. Kane emerges from his cryopod and angrily kills Krakauer when he sees the sculpture of Zana melting. He fixes the temperature controls and then tracks down Balazs, killing her for interfering with his plans of revenge. In the tunnels, the dragon brings him to one of the caves that the Doctor and Glitz had earlier searched and activates a hologram archive. The hologram speaks about Kane and Zana, revealing them to be the leaders of their home planet's most brutal and sadistic gang over 3,000 years ago. It says that Kane was banished to Iceworld as punishment after Zana killed herself during their arrest. Glitz asks what this has to do with the treasure. The Doctor says that Kane was wanted for some reason, but it must be in the place where he cannot get it. Ace suggested it must be somewhere hot. The Doctor then says that the dragon is actually the treasure, and in response, the creature opens its head, revealing it to be an animatronic. A large glowing crystal emerges from its head, and the Doctor explains that it is filled with vast amounts of optical energy. He says that anyone wielding it will have immense power. Unbeknownst to them, Kane is monitoring them through the tracker on the map, and he rejoices that soon his revenge will be complete. Part 3. Kane dispatches a pair of guards to track down the dragon and destroy it, but to make sure to bring back its head. Back in the cavern, the Doctor says the name of Kane's home planet sounds familiar, but he cannot remember where he heard it before. He says that he needs to go back to the TARDIS to consult his star charts, but Glitz says that he discovered a primitive constellation map in another of the chambers. The Doctor takes the map and orders the others to stay behind, telling Glitz that the girls will keep him out of trouble. The dragon guides him to the constellation room, and he looks at the maps on the wall. However, he says the maps are outdated and wonders how long the dragon has lived on Iceworld. Meanwhile, Kane has released all of his brainwashed soldiers to wreak havoc in the spaceport and orders them to force the survivors onto Glitz's ship. The soldiers kill several people as they rampage through the spaceport. Back in the caverns, Ace says that she has run out of Nitro-9 and says they should go back to her room so she can resupply. Dubious of her homemade creation, Glitz says that he has regulation explosives on his ship and orders them to stay behind once he goes to get it. Bored with being left out, Mel and Ace begin an unenthusiastic game of I Spy. A short while later, the Doctor returns, having been guided back by the dragon, who helped him to avoid Kane's guards that are searching the corridors. The Doctor asks where Glitz is, and they tell him that he went back to his ship. The Doctor says they need to find him, as he says he knows a way to stop Kane and save the dragon. At that moment, the dragon is stalking the guards in the corridors, who discover the little girl that has fled from the chaos in the spaceport. The guards flee as the dragon fires on them, and once they are gone, it takes the girl back to the spaceport. At that moment, Glitz arrives at the docking bay, but sees his ship take off with all the fleeing refugees on board. He then watches in shock as it blows up, having been remotely detonated by Kane. The Doctor, Mel and Ace arrive at the TARDIS and go inside. The Doctor looks up his star charts, while Mel explains the TARDIS's trans-dimensional nature to a confused Ace. The Doctor frustratedly says that he can find no trace of Kane's home planet, and then tells him to follow him back outside. Ace says that she wants to go back to her apartment to get more Nitro-9 and promises to catch up with them. However, when she arrives back, she is captured by Kane. Meanwhile, down the tunnels, the dragon is killed by the pair of guards, but when they remove its head, the crystal emerges and it fires bolts of energy at them, killing them. A few moments later, the Doctor and Mel arrive and lament the dragon's destruction. The Doctor says that they must take the crystal and use it to put an end to Kane's reign of terror. They go back to Ace's room and find Glitz rummaging around in it. They ask him where Ace is, but he says that he doesn't know. Suddenly, Kane's voice comes over the spaceport intercom, and he offers to trade Ace for the crystal. The Doctor says they have no choice but to give him the crystal. They then go to the control room, and the Doctor begins talking about Kane's 3,000-year imprisonment. Kane reveals that the dragon was also from his home planet and was sent to ensure that he never escaped. He says that the crystal is the power source for the prison ship that he came in and wishes he can return home to wreak his vengeance. Mel refuses to hand over the crystal, much to Ace's shock, and she begs her to give it to Kane. Kane prepares to kill Ace, and the Doctor tells Mel to do as Kane says. Mel puts the crystal in the ignition slot, and the room begins to shake as the entire spaceport detaches from Iceworld, revealing it to be the prison ship. As Kane gloats in his victory, the Doctor reveals that his home planet was destroyed in a supernova 2,000 years ago. Kane angrily denies the evidence, but opens a nearby blast window, exposing himself to sunlight, and Mel says the others watch in shock. Later in the TARDIS, Mel tells the Doctor it is time for her to go home. The Doctor is shocked by this, but quickly busies himself so as not to show how upset he is. Mel tries to say goodbye to him, but he ignores her and talks about the strangest of time travel, mentioning how peculiar their time together has been. Mel sadly says goodbye, and the Doctor pulls himself together to wish her well and give her a hug. Glitz arrives with Ace in tow and says that he has finished preparing his new ship, the spaceport itself, to bring Ace back to Earth. Ace is unenthused by the idea, but Mel asks if she can join Glitz in his travels. Glitz is taken aback by this, but the Doctor says it is a good idea and Mel can keep him out of trouble. Mel then quietly suggests that the Doctor take Ace with him, and he agrees before saying his final goodbye to Mel. Ace prepares to follow them, but the Doctor asks if she wants to take the scenic route back to Parvale with him and the TARDIS. Ace enthusiastically accepts, but the Doctor says that there are 3 rules that she must follow. Firstly, that he is in charge. Secondly, that she stop calling him Professor, which she has done since their first meeting, and he cheekily says that he will think of the 3rd rule soon. The TARDIS then dematerializes, watched by the little girl that the dragon saved before she is joined by her mother, the rude customer that Ace encountered earlier. End of the story. Right. So that is the story recap done. Now over to the trivia spot. So, what do you got for us this week?
Cool. So the air date for Dragonfire is the 23rd of November to the 7th of December 1987. The writer of the story is Ian Briggs. This is the first of 2 Doctor Who writing credits for Ian. Kel Surprise, for those of you in the know, he also wrote The Curse of Fenric, and he also wrote the novelizations for both stories. The director of the story is Chris Clough. This is story 4 of 6 for Chris. We previously saw his work in Terror of the Vorvoids, The Ultimate Foe, and last time's Delta the Batman. And we'll see his work again in The Happiness Patrol, which commonly gets confused with Paradise Towers, and also in Cyber Nemesis.
I just realised something. This is technically the 24th anniversary special. Because it started on the 23rd of November.
Technically, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a little note later on, I think, that I have on something else about this story, but we'll see.
Right.
So, Andrew Cartmel, who was the script editor at the time, encouraged his writers to read the Academic Media Studies textbook, Doctor Who, The Unfolding Text, that was written by John Tulloch and Manuel Alvarado, to acquaint themselves with the series. Ian actually used some short passages from the book in the dialogue to sort of connect them all together. At one point, the character of Kane would have been called Hess, which Ian Briggs liked because it sounded like hiss. Simple reason. This was changed, though, due to the announcement that the Soviet government under Gorbachev had no longer opposed the release of Nazi war criminal Rudolf Hess on humanitarian grounds, and due to Hess's death by suicide in Berlin on the 17th of August 1987. They decided any association with the word Hess and weird, not quite, but kind of gives the same impression, Nazi outfits.
Yeah, because like
best to leave off.
Like, because their helmets are very World War One German-esque type helmets. Yeah,
and even just I think even like most uniforms on bad guys now, I think we subconsciously associate with Nazis. And obviously Nazis weren't in World War One.
Yeah.
So But I think there's just this visual connotation that we have.
Yeah.
So yeah, they decided not to go with that. They went with Cain instead.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing biblical reference.
Yeah.
So Paddy asked me about this the other day, and I said I didn't have an answer. I have less of an answer now, but we do have a point on it. There's a literal cliffhanger at the end of part 1,
Mm-hmm.
in which the Doctor, for reasons that make no sense watching the episode, hooks his umbrella onto a railing and lowers himself over the guardrail to dangle over an apparent abyss for no apparent reason. And there has been, some might say, some criticism of this seemingly quite absurd decision.
Yep.
According to Andrew Cartmel, what was originally meant to... The implication was that this was a dead end.
Mm-hmm.
And his only way forward was downwards. And so he had no option but to scale the cliff. But the way it was shot... I mean, you kind of get that impression when he starts.
Mm.
But then you kind of get it says that once he got halfway down the umbrella, he realised it was a terrible fucking idea.
Yeah.
I was like, what did you think was going to happen?
Because like this is the first that scene,
And also he's facing the wrong way. He's not even facing into the cliff.
No.
He's facing outwards.
because I was like, that was the first clip of the 7th Doctor I ever saw. That bit, and I was like, what the fuck is he doing?
It makes no sense.
And like I really had to kind of make it, like when I was doing the summary, I was like, all right, how do I write this so he doesn't look like a fucking colossal dumbass?
There is no way he just looks like a colossal dumbass. I think you could justify it if you had him facing into the cliff.
Yeah.
And just that, like, he misjudged how far down the next little step bit would be. That would work.
Like, because
because
like it's shot really badly because like it's like that weird perspective thing where like it's very 2-dimensional. It reminds me of like that show Nightmare. It's like going, all right, so this is what's happening.
But yeah, there is one scene. Well, there's one scene in particular in this story that can be quite, a bit behind the sofa, which is the melting of Cain's face.
Yeah.
Well, Cain as a whole, but particularly we see his face, which is very reminiscent, obviously, of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Mm-hmm. Speaking of Nazis. The way it was filmed, that they had a wax bust of his face, which was melted down in front of a recording camera, with the footage later sped up for incorporation into the episode. So there's also a notable absence of red wax to tone his demise for a more family-centered thing. So it's a little bit lighter than Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't put any blood or tissue or anything. But yeah, it was quite good. I mean, it was quite well, the filming of it.
Really well done.
But like, if you were a kid, it'd be like, holy shit.
Yep.
So we saw the return of Glitz.
Mm-hmm.
So his return was inspired by a similar character called Razorback or Swordfish, who was going to appear until Jonathan Turner realized he was a bit too similar to Glitz and just said, should we not just bring back Glitz? Which I think is fair.
Yeah.
The child who runs around this episode does not have a name.
No.
And there was originally a scene where she encounters Cain while she was exploring around by herself, but Cain didn't harm her. It's interesting. But this was lost in the rewrites. What is interesting is, what did you think of her little outfit? Her little blue dress?
Yeah, it's very kind of... it's like those late Victorian, early Edwardian little girl outfits, It's all kind of poofy.
That was Bonnie's.
Yeah?
As an adult. It was a dress from a production that she'd been in.
All right. So they really took it in so for her.
Yeah, they obviously resized it to her waist, but like the length of it, it was Bonnie's as an adult. Bonnie is quite short.
Yeah.
Sophie Aldred originally wore black and yellow striped tights, but this caused issues with the camera because it's kind of caused the picture to strobe a little bit. So they just substituted them out for her red ones. We mentioned last week that Sarah Griffith's character of Ray from Delta and the Bannerman was initially predicted to be replacing Bonnie. However, that role went to Ace in this serial instead. Although Ace is 16, Sophie Aldred, who played her, is actually nearly 10 years older than her. And she was, in fact, 2 years older than Bonnie was. Well, she's 2 years older than Bonnie in general.
Yeah.
Obviously, at the time, she was 2 years older than Bonnie. Now she's 3 years younger than Bonnie.
Yeah.
Weird choice. No, she is 2 years older than Bonnie. And obviously, therefore, would also have been 2 years older than her when they were swapping out. Originally, we had Ace choosing to join Kane as a mercenary, with his sovereign becoming permanently imprinted on her palm. She was then going to rebel only when he ordered her to kill Mel. However, those developments were felt to be a bit too similar to Belage's arc, and so that was decided against. She also at one point had a stuffed dog named Wayne.
Oh.
And it just reminds me of fucking Stephen and
Oh.
what the fuck was his name?
I'll look it up. It's something to do with.
I'm thinking DJ.
No, it's not. It's hang on, give me a second.
Type faster.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Chakotay.net. 1 second. The Chase. God almighty. What was the name of it? Hi-Fi.
Hi-Fi. Oh, yes. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to give a disturbing trivia point.
Okay.
And then I'm going to give a slightly nicer trivia point, and then we're going to go on to the cast. Right? So you need to prepare yourself for the disturbing trivia point, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Ian Briggs had originally included in the backstory for Dragonfire, I need to point out, Ace is 16, right?
Yeah.
That Ace had recently lost her virginity to Glitz. This plot point was unsurprisingly not included in the episode as shot. However, Paul Cornell later referred to the event in his New Adventures novel, Happy Endings.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
It's an ick. We're going to move on from it.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So, we have the departure of Mel. So, Bonnie had kind of hinted that she wanted to go. Bonnie, coming from stage, Bonnie was very much a sort of, you go in, you do your thing, and you leave.
Yeah.
You go into a production, it runs for a year or two, and then you piss off and go on to the next thing. So she had made the decision to leave. And we obviously get what I think is a really lovely goodbye speech from the Doctor. So we get a proper goodbye, which is always nice. We like when we get proper goodbyes. And the Doctor delivers this lovely speech. That was actually the audition speech that Sylvester was given when he was auditioning for the role. When Sylvester realized that was going to be his last scene with Mel, there was something that Ian had put together, and Sylvester really wanted this thing that was written for his audition, and everyone was kind of saying, no, like that's different, whatever. And he really kept pushing it. And so it was originally written by Andrew Cartmel, who wrote that piece. And so Andrew shared it with Ian, and ultimately it ended up making its way into the episode. But that was a Sylvester thing. Probably what was originally written was grand, but it wasn't great. And he was like, but you had me do that amazing thing a few weeks ago. That was this. Why are we not using that for this? And so that was added there at the end, which I think is lovely.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of Tom and Liz and how they wanted their departure thing to be so good. And I like when the actors actually take an interest in that. So let's go on to our cast. So as Sabalom Glitz.
Before you do that, I have a question for you. And it kind of goes back to the little girl. Did you get like a sort of weird quasi-aliens feel to it? Like with kind of Newt, and then as well like with the dragon being kind of reminiscent of a xenomorph?
A bit, yeah.
Yeah.
I also kind of got the vibe that because we know that Mel is from Earth.
Yes.
We don't entirely know when.
No.
We don't know how they got together. And she's off continuing to explore the universe now, so
yeah,
good on her. But I kind of got the sense that like the little girl kind of had a connection with Mel and Ace. Like she sees the TARDIS materializing, she sees it disappearing, and I don't know, I kind of got this sort of like future companion vibe off of her. But yeah, I see what you mean though about Alien. I think, or aliens rather, in this particular case. And definitely with the dragon outfit. Is very, very similar. But as I was saying, let's go on to our cast. So as Sabalom Glitz, we have Tony Selby. This is his third and final appearance, so we will not be seeing Glitz again. We previously saw him in the role of Glitz in The Mysterious Planet and The Ultimate Foe, and as I mentioned then, Tony passed away back in 2021. As Kane, we have Edward Peel. This is the only on-screen Doctor Who role for Edward. He did also do some Doctor Who audio work, though. His non-Who credits include Oh Lucky Man, Treasure Island, Force 10 from Navarone, Emmerdale, Little Princess, which I originally thought was A Little Princess, but no, it's like it's a BBC children's program with like a paper princess thing. He was the king in that. And A Midsummer Night's Dream. Belage or Belaz or whatever, however you pronounce her fucking name, is played by the one and only Patricia Quinn. This is the only Doctor Who acting credit for Patricia. Oh, this feels so weird saying that full name. She also did some Doctor Who audio work. Patricia is best known though for her role as Magenta in the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I also met her a couple of years ago in not Wales, at Wales Comic Con, so in Telford at Wales Comic Con. She was really nice. She was really lovely to me. She was very, very sweet. Her other credits include The Lords of Salem, The Meaning of Life, and Shock Treatment.
2 quick things. I recently saw a stage version of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. It's fucking incredible. I would recommend it to anybody to go see it because the audience participation bit in it is amazing. Secondly, you were just kind of saying Belaz, Beloge, whatever. Because you made the reference to Raiders of the Lost Ark earlier, all I kept thinking of was that scene in Raiders when Sulla is saying, oh, there's a Belgian, they call him Beloge, and he was like going, no, it's Belloc. That's all I could think of.
And then we won't be discussing him, but as Krakauer, is that how we pronounce his name? We have Tony Asoba. This is the second of 3 appearances for Tony. We previously saw him, though we didn't discuss him, in Destiny of Daleks. And we'll see him again many years later in Kill the Moon. His non-Who credits include Porridge, Dempsey and Makepeace, and Coronation Street. Last but not least, we have our new companion, that is Dorothy Ace McShane. So she is played by the wonderful Sophie Aldred. Sophie was born in 1962 in Greenwich, and she actually shares the same birthday with Sylvester McCoy. Which is quite sweet. Dragonfire was Sophie's first on-screen acting role. She'd never acted on-screen before. This is her first on-screen role, and her first scene was actually the scene with herself and Kane with Mel up on the on the bar. At the time when she got the role, she was actually working in the chorus of Fiddler on the Roof. Sophie's going to go on to play Ace, slight spoiler, until the end of the classic run of the show. And she will also go on to reprise her role as Ace in an infinite number of Big Finish audio dramas, BBC audio stories, like so many different variations of it. She also returned to the role on television in the 2022 special The Power of the Doctor. She also appeared in the YouTube special Farewell Sarah Jane, which was produced by the BBC during COVID, and which gave a little bit of a future look into the character of Ace. Sophie has also authored one of my favourite Doctor Who novels, which is At Childhood's End, which we may end up talking a little bit more about when we get to Curse of Fenric. Maybe. Outside of Doctor Who, Sophie's credits include Children's Ward, Casualty, and Emmerdale. I have also met Sophie. She is also very, very sweet and lovely. And her and Sylvester together are just very funny. Okay. So, summary done. Trivia done. Time to go on to the main portion of this podcast, which is the character discussion. So, as always, we'll be discussing the Doctor, as played by Sylvester McCoy. We'll be discussing the companions of Mel and Ace, either she's into the role. Prominent characters of Glitz and Bellage.
Yeah.
And then the villain of Kane. So, as is our tradition, it wasn't our tradition at the beginning. It became a tradition when we kept forgetting who went first.
Yeah.
The person who reads the socials goes first in the discussion. So, Paddington, that is you, my friend. So, what did you think of the Doctor in Dragonfire?
Before I do that, I just want to say Tony Osoba, the guy that plays Krakauer, I love him. I think he's a great actor. He just didn't really contribute anything here, but
Yeah.
highly recommend checking him out in Porridge. And also, he's a small part in a great movie called Who Dares Wins. Check that out as well. Anyway, the Doctor. I'm kind of liking this like cosmic tourist version of the Doctor that Sylvester seems to be playing. You know, it's just like it kind of harkens back to when the show started. Like I mean, like outside of the first four, because like you know, obviously, Unearthly Child, Daleks, and Edge of Destruction is the opening arc. That's and then like Marco Polo was like going, okay, we're cemented now. And then everything after was like, you know, leading into the Romans were just like going, look, fuck it, I just want to go on a holiday. It's just all this type of stuff. So it's kind of nice to go back to that a bit, you know. His interactions with Ace and the dragon, I think are where he's at his strongest. No, I'll go with the dragon first because even though the dragon is a non-speaking role, the Doctor doesn't. When he finds out that the dragon isn't like an actual dragon,
Yeah,
he doesn't treat it like a robot. Like he still treats it as a living, breathing thing, and I quite like that because when he comes across the dragon's body, there is this slight, quite anger that Sylvester gets across in it. And I think that's a classic trait of the Doctor, which is like this empathy he has for things that what the guys in Mission Log would kind of say, oh, the carbon chauvinism. It's a case of like, well, you know, and it's actually odd. He seemed to have more, you know, like sympathy for this thing than he did for Chameleon, the fucking thing that he ended up killing himself. I'm really gotta stop taking pot shots. But anyway, but back to Ace then is like, again, it kind of goes back to when John and Joe, like when the third Doctor and Joe kind of came on the scene, or even the first Doctor and Vicky. It's this thing of like, you know, I think we'll have fun. I think I don't, but like in this even before that, like when they're in the cafe and things like that, it's like the enthusiasm of him kind of going, oh, like I want to search for this amazing physical specimen. She's like, oh, and there's going to be treasure too. He goes, yeah, come on, sure, why not? Like the seeds of their relationship are very strong from the start. I did like his like funny interaction with the philosophical guard, because when the guard starts really getting into the whole metaphysical nature of things, he like there's a sort of like, what the fuck have I started? Look at his face. His bits with Kane, I liked. I wanted to see more though, and I think that I don't know if I'll bring that up with Kane because I have lots of stuff to say about Kane, but that could have maybe had one more episode, or they could have trimmed some of the stuff from this because I think that could have been great. They could have the seeds of a really good dynamic. And I'll talk more about that when I talk about Kane. But I think overall, I have thoughts about the goodbye scene, but from Sylvester's point of view, I thought it was really well done. This whole the anger, the weird slight sense of betrayal, then realizing I can't end like this, and like their little hug and his just fondness for her, and even that little speech, all great, all really good. So yeah, no, like, excuse me, I like the Doctor in this.
Yeah, for me, I think this is probably, like, out of the 4 stories we've had so far, this is probably the most doctor-y Doctor.
Yeah.
In a way. Sylvester's clearly gotten comfortable in the role. Well, there's still a little bit of tomfoolery, like the whole thing with the fucking umbrella. But also with like Sylvester really going into the slippy acting.
Yeah.
He really leant in hard in the slippy acting. I think there's a bit of the vaudeville in Sylvester that he just can't. He just can't knock it out of himself. But I think this is probably the most consistent we've seen him. And the most doctory in a way. Like to your point, it's an adventure. You know, I mean, are they still fucking on holiday? Maybe not.
Yeah.
Those two are always going on holiday, but there's adventure to it. But there is also the seriousness of it, like the fact that like when he realized that Glitz sold his crew, and he just shunned him. I was like, I'm not fucking talking to you anymore. No, like they have a very interesting dynamic, the two of them, because obviously Glitz is a weird pseudo mercenary, like Glitz is a weird character in general, and the Doctor clearly has a very weird dynamic with him. But I like the fact that like he didn't try to change who Glitz is as a person, but he also refused to validate Glitz's position on it. Do you know? It was very much, what you do is your business, but dude, that was fucked up.
Yeah.
That was fucked up and that was wrong. I like the dynamic that he had with Mel and Ace in this story, because I kind of got the vibe that like he left them behind to keep them away from Glitz.
Yeah.
Do you know? That you could tell that like someone was going to fucking throw a punch sometime soon. And so he was like, "Do you know what? I need to. People need to de-stress."
Yes.
For a second, so we're gonna go here, and you guys can talk, and we'll catch up later. I agree with you on his treatment of the dragon. And first of all, there was like what I think is wonderful is his whole there's a real childish nature to this Doctor. And in a different way to the childish nature of Tom. And it kind of harkens back, I think, more so to Bill, where like when he's looking at the map, and then when they see like the gardens and they all look the fucking same, right? But he gets so excited, and he's like, "This is so amazing! This looks so cool!" And he's just like a little boy who's just like super excited to be exploring this stuff, which I love. And I love that because we didn't get to see too much of that with Colin just because of the nature of his Doctor and the stories that he had.
Yeah.
We didn't get as much of that boyish nature, and we didn't have it with Peter really at all. Tom had it a bit, but his was more like petulant child.
Yeah.
John didn't really have it.
No.
In the same way. He was more a boy with his toys. Patrick had it a bit, I think, when he was riding the Dalek like a bumper car or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think it is very reminiscent of Bill. And this just sort of like, oh, yay. I got to find a thing. In terms of, I said, with his thing with the dragon, I completely agree with you. His interaction with Kane, I'm going to disagree with you for a second. I actually think it was the perfect length.
Okay.
Because it allowed the other characters to breathe. And it's this thing of Kane is aware, or the Doctor's aware of Kane as the guy who runs the nut house, right?
Yeah.
But he doesn't actually know how messed up Kane actually is until very close to the end. Whereas Kane has been watching him the whole time. And there's something about that I quite like. that what the Doctor knows about Kane, he's learned from Glitz, he's learned from Balaj, he's learned from Mel, and he's learned from Ace. And I kind of prefer that to maybe them having an earlier confrontation and then the Doctor escaping and things like that. I prefer the fact that they just met at the climax.
No,
and that was it.
I get that.
Yeah.
I think it's just that like we're 4 stories in now, and I want to have that Doctor confrontation moment that everyone gets in their early days.
Yeah.
And like here was a villain that I think it was teed up for him, you know?
I think I agree with you in a way, but I also don't. I don't think Kane is a villain that, this is going to sound really bad. I don't mean, he sounds worse than he is.
Okay, yeah.
Kane is a villain on his own little isolated part of the world.
Yeah.
Iceworld was running fine for generations with Kane in the background. And it only became a problem when Kane started losing patience and he wanted the Dragonfire and whatever. As opposed to it being, because when Kane didn't set up Iceworld, he was put there. And this commerce built up around him.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? As opposed to it being, Kane, took over this planet and put the. Do you know what I mean? I think he's an interesting villain because of how he's portrayed, and we'll talk about him obviously as his own character in a second. But I think in terms of villain ranking, he's kind of mid. And I think would have been nice for Sylvester to have a, what is the point of all this speech? Yeah. But I'm not disappointed he didn't get one with this villain.
Okay.
In terms of the goodbye and the ending in general, I'm a bit curious about. I mean, he clearly doesn't approve of Glitz's behavior, so I'm surprised he's letting Mel go off with him.
Yeah,
that's like why. But Mel has met Glitz before, so she is aware of what he's like, and she's a grown woman; she'll make her own choices. I do think it's very sweet. Like when they get to the emotion of it, I do think it's very sweet. It's very reminiscent of Fourth Doctor and Sarah, like very reminiscent. Almost to the point of you're kind of like, okay, did they just rewrite that scene in a slightly different way? But I think the emotion is there, the heart is there. If we compare it to some of the companion exits we've had previously, I mean, there's no contest really.
Yeah.
Like if you compare it to Tegan or, I mean, Perry died, so ignore Perry. If we compare it to like Tegan and them, like there's no contest. It's just better. And I like these kind of exits where you can tell the Doctor cares about the companion. Do you know what I mean? And if the companion cares about the Doctor, but also if the companion is making their own choice. And we'll talk about that when we get to Mel.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for me, I think this is probably the strongest outing of the season. I do still have a soft spot for Time in the Rani because it was just really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think overall Sylvester ended on a high note from a performance point of view. Okay, now we go on to the companions. So usually we do the exiting. Well, do I do the exiting companion first or the incoming companion first? I've forgotten how we normally do this.
We
usually do the exiting one last, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
You pick because you're first.
I kind of wanted, because I think like we were just after doing the transitional thing. I kind of want to do Mel first. Mainly because, okay, giving the game away. I'm going to be more positive about this. Mostly positive. Mel, I think, is the weakest aspect of this story. So like the bravado at the start is like, oh, if you kill him, you'll have to kill us too. It's like, where the fuck did that come from? Because like you know that Glitz is full of shit at the best of times. It's like, but I think on the wider scope of things, I don't know what happened with Mel, because like I did, like Johnny and Turner just get bored of her, because there are when she's not screaming or doing nothing, she's kind of a brat in this story. Like, there's the bit where Ace is like frustrated, and like she just has like some catty response to it. It's like, well, like, you know, like it's kind of, it's almost this thing of like going like, well, what the fuck are you complaining about? I'm the one that's stuck here with you, type thing. And it's like, whatever it was, it just didn't seem like the Mel that we had seen up to this point. And like, even when they got to Iceworld, she like kind of like, oh, it's a bit boring, isn't it? And it's, I just don't really know what happened here. And like, there was again like that bit like at the end of the first episode where they encountered the dragon, and like you have Bonnie just looks at it, and like, or Mel just looks at it and just screams like high pitch, whereas Ace is kind of like, ugh, just like this weird kind of facial thing.
Part of that is that I think it was Sophie wasn't feeling well.
Okay, fair enough.
And so she had pains in her ears, and then Bonnie screamed right in her ear.
Yeah. But it's like, over the course of the like her run, like it just seems to be less and less and less. And like also the ending, like when you said like, oh, like it's better than Tegan and Perry's, I'm like, well, it's not a particularly high bar to get over, but also it's like the whole thing of we're going, I think it's time for me to be going now. I like, you know, I need to leave. So I'm going to go with this other interstellar traveler and also go on like potentially weird adventures, which is more dangerous for her because she knows that he just sold his fucking crew to a mass murdering psychopath. I do not get the logic in her leaving, going with the Doctor, where, okay, you can say there's the whole thing of like, it's kind of dangerous traveling with the Doctor. I would argue it's infinitely more dangerous traveling with Glitz because he will potentially sell you out like a fucking, like there's no tomorrow. So like, it's in terms, like it's a nice scene in the sense of how Sylvester and Bonnie acted out, but in terms of the motivation for leaving the TARDIS, it's pretty bad, I think.
I have a theory.
Yeah.
I have an in-universe theory that has no bearing in reality. I think Paradise Towers fucked Mel up.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I think last week, or last time with Delta and the Bannerman, watching that fucking bus explode also fucked her up.
Yeah.
My view of Mel deciding to leave was that she was no longer having fun. She loved the Doctor, she loved spending time with him.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of got the sense that she had sort of seen and experienced all she felt that she could with him.
Mm-hmm.
And she needs to see more and experience more. And so she's going to tag along with Glitz for a while. Because bearing in mind, Glitz is a total creep.
Mm-hmm.
But Glitz was fully intending to take Mel, or to take Ace back to Earth. He would fully agree to do that. He had no issue with that whatsoever. I think Mel sort of sees Glitz a bit for what he is, in that, like, I think Glitz is kind of meant to be the sort of rogue with a heart of gold, very, 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 very deep down.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. And Mel sort of, as far as Mel's concerned, she can hold her own with Glitz. Do you know what I mean? She's encountered him before and whatever. I think between last story and this story, I think it's also possibly the fact that, like, again, in universe, Mel's like, there's all this action happening around me, but I don't get to have control. Because bearing in mind, Mel wanted to refuse to hand over the Dragonfire.
Yeah.
Like, Ace was up against it, and Mel was so upset by what happened to the dragon that she had it in her. She fucking refused to hand it over. She was like, no, I'm not giving in. And I think it's her decision to leave was more so because it was always going to be the Doctor making the choice.
Yeah.
And she kind of wanted to go and do her own thing. She'd learned a lot, they'd seen a lot and whatever, but she wanted to go and explore different parts of the universe and, you know, not have to, not get caught up in the situations that he does or give in to him.
I can fully get behind that as a theory, but the problem is if that is what the implication is meant to be, then the writers did fucking Mel rock.
Oh no, I don't think that's what the implication is meant to be. That's how I in universe resolve it for myself, because in reality, I 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
They got in Bonnie because they wanted to get rid of Perry as the character. I think the whole accent thing, I think all the stuff they tried with Perry, they were like, no, this doesn't work. But they wanted a screamer. Bonnie's small, she's compact, and, you know, she screams on pitch, right? Which J&T really liked the fact that she could scream on pitch. But I think people didn't know what to do with her. Do you know what I mean? Again, it's the same way that, like, Perry apparently studied botany.
Yeah.
We never did anything with that. Mel apparently, like, I can't remember what Mel apparently studied.
She's computer science.
Yeah. And they never did anything with it.
No.
Do you know what I mean? And I think, to be honest, I think it's just that Jonathan Turner just doesn't know how to create female characters.
Yeah. Because, like, every other character that has had this motivation of, you know, going, oh, it's too dangerous, and at least they've had a chance to fucking actually say it out loud, like, you know, the Tegans or Joe or fucking Victoria. But this is very reminiscent of, like, the going back to the fucking paper episode era, where it was like, well, Jackie Lane's contract's up, like fucking Dodo just said, oh, Tara, or fucking Maureen.
Not Maureen O'Hara.
No. Maureen O'Brien?
Yeah, but no. Why is my brain not working? Maureen O'Brien.
Yeah. It's just like this whole team going, oh, yeah, she fell in love with Troilus, and they're off. It's a case of, like, it's really fucking them over because it's not giving them the agency to kind of say, look, I love traveling with you, but I just can't take the stress, the whatever with it. At least let them leave with a bit of dignity.
But I think that's what they were trying to do, though. But she didn't want to hurt his feelings.
Maybe.
They're friends. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's the difference, is that, like, with Vicky and with Dodo and stuff, they weren't friends in the same way. They were mentor and mentee. They were guardian and ward.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Whereas I saw it as, I mean, it was a bit reminiscent of Sarah Jane being, I'll pack my goodies and go home.
Yeah.
But I just thought as Mel kind of going, I like the exploring thing, but I think I need a change of atmosphere. And I want to keep exploring, but I need a bit of a change.
I can fully get behind that, but I just don't think it was adequately done in what we got.
No, I think part of that is the fact that Dragonfire wasn't written as an exit story. Delta and the Bannerman wasn't written as an exit story. It was maybe she'll leave in this one, maybe she'll leave in that one, as opposed to just going back to, like, say, Hand of Fear. Liz had said she wanted to leave. They knew what story it was going to be, and she asked for that story not to be about her leaving. But you can see building up through the story why Sarah Jane would throw a strop, and would threaten to leave. And so that built up naturally. Whereas this is just like, oh, well, we can either change the ending of this episode for Mel to stay on Earth in the 50s and for Ray to go off, or we can change this episode where her and Ace swap places. And that's all they did. Because they didn't know which one it was going to be, and so they just wrote them both in such a way that they could swap her out with either one of them. I think had it been Delta and the Bannerman, I think the ending probably would have been the same. I think it would have been exactly the same. I don't think the story wasn't written around her having her leave, which is problematic. In terms of Mel for the rest of the story, she's grand. She's there. I think that very much the last two stories for Mel are, she's grand. She's there. Again, I would have liked to have seen her driving plot. Because when Mel does drive plot, she does it very well. And she's very smart, and she's a keen investigator, and I would have liked to have seen her do more. It was very reminiscent, actually, of The Ultimate Foe, where Glitz went into the Matrix with the Doctor as opposed to Mel going to the Matrix with him. It reminded me a lot of that. Mel and Ace is an interesting thing. Because, well, obviously Sophie is older. Mel is the older party here. Mel's in her 20s. And Ace is 16. So they clearly get along quite well. But then when Mel goes to her room and she's just like, oh, holy fucking hell. Because she makes a comment of, could you not have fucking cleaned up?
Yeah.
And Ace is in the middle of a fucking rant about losing her job. And you fuck him, he's a prick, and all that kind of shit. And I get it, because Mel comes across as like so pristine and well put together.
Yeah.
That like, I think she just sort of, it's like it's like walking to a man cave and you're just like, it's an adult going to the room of a teenager.
Yeah.
I didn't take it as her directing that as at Ace personally. I think it was just like her sort of like, you actually live like this, but not in a sort of like snide way, but in a sort of, the way your parents, like when you're a teenager and your parents walk into your room and you're like, is there a floor under any of this?
Yeah.
Do you know, what is that smell? Is it a cup from yesterday? Like, do you know what I mean? That was the vibe I got, but it was more like just the generational gap between the two of them.
Oh no, the bits I'm referring to are where they're left in the cafe together. Like the bits where they go into the apartment. I get the way that you're getting it. But there was just one or two bits in the cafe after the Doctor and Glitz had left. I was like, that felt a bit weird.
Yeah. I do like the fact that like she clearly got along with Ace well enough for Ace to open up to her, which we'll talk about when we talk about Ace. And I like that she doesn't judge either. Like, this teenager is going around with heavy duty explosives, and she's like, okay.
Yeah.
She just wings it. What I found was the most interesting part of the Mel Ace dynamic, though, was the fact that, and this is where I think Mel has outgrown the Doctor. And I think is part of the in-universe reason why she decided to leave. Again, out of universe makes no sense, but in-universe reason to leave. Which is, she was willing to make the sacrifice.
Yeah.
She didn't want to let Kane loose on the universe. He's already done all this horrible shit. I am not giving him this power core. I'm not doing it. And I find that interesting because we don't get that out of Mel usually. Mel is lovely and she can have backbone, but not that way.
Yeah.
I have a funny feeling that, again, if you try to look for an in-universe reason, I think that's it, is that she's outgrown him. And she can now make her own decisions.
Yeah. And
you're making a weird smiley face.
No, I've had up to hear what all you motherfuckers, I swear to God.
But yeah, I think, was it her strongest story? No, it wasn't. It was nice to see her running around with Ace, but I think this might be another Delta and the Bannerman where she's sort of sidelined from the main action, which is unfortunate.
No, I agree.
Okay. So what did you think of Ace?
Here she is, Ace. Another strong, successful candidate into the Strong Start Club for companions, I think.
Mm.
Um, there's a lot to unpack with Ace. First of all, her banter back and forth with Glitz is great. Like I've had the word bilge bag stuck in my head, or like the hyphenated word, or whatever you want to call it. I've had that stuck in my head for a while. Um, like I love that interaction with like her interactions with every single person throughout it
Mm.
is great. With Glitz, it's the whole fuck off, old man. You're not going to tell me what I can and can't do. With Mel, it's that, oh yeah, we're both women, but we are completely opposite in how we go about doing our things. Her stuff with the doctor as well. Like again, it's just like fucking thick as thieves. Uh, like oh, that sounds so cool. Can I come too? Yeah, let's do this. Let's do that. Her bit with Kane. So you said that was the first scene that she did, and it's her first acting job. Fuck me.
Her first on-screen acting job.
Okay, fuck me. Her first on-screen acting job. She nailed that scene. Because I thought that was like really good. Like you can, even though she's like 10 years older than she's meant to be. No, she's got it down perfectly of like the fucking slightly hypnotized, enamored teen with this very kind of charismatic, slightly menacing person. So that was great. Like her acting throughout the whole thing is fantastic, especially when it comes to that monologue. When she's talking about, I never felt like I belonged. I always felt like I was from the other, like from outside. Like and my parents named me Dorothy. Like they can't really be my parents if they named me Dorothy. And I can see why. Like first of all, like what child growing up that like has like has never has sometimes they've felt that way, kind of going, I feel like there's something unique about me. I think there's like I'm not meant to be doing this. I'm meant to be from somewhere beyond. Like it's like the gateway moment because like everyone's had that type of thing from once upon a time. But I can also see why Ace is such a firm favorite within the LGBTQ plus community because of that monologue. To kind of go like, that's not who I am. I'm not who people like. I'm not what life is kind of making me to be. I'm meant to be something else. So I can absolutely see why people have latched on to that aspect of her character. Her just in terms of Ace herself, like just like that brazen attitude, like kind of going, like no respect for adult authority whatsoever. The fact that to hear her talk and to see her thing, you would think that she is, that, kind of like wrong side of the tracks, kind of like what you might call it. Over in England, you might call them a chav, or over here, we call them like a knacker or something like that. But it's like it's not that because like she's incredibly resourceful. But it's like the whole thing like the Nitro 9 creation, and just like that very casual thing where she's like, no, look at them, they can't get the fucking ice out of the way. Here, just plops 2 of the cans of Nitro 9 into it and it explodes the thing. I've always liked Ace, and now going back to the start and watching her from the start, I thought it was a really, really strong debut and very well performed by Sophie. Interactions with every male person that she interacted with were excellent. They all had their own separate dynamics. Yeah, really strong start.
Yeah, I just had a quick look. So Perivale or however you pronounce it. Not to be so Perivale, Perivale is where she's from. Not to be confused with Perivale, which is 2 separate words.
Yeah.
So Perivale is in the London borough of Ealing. It's about 10 miles west of Charing Cross.
Right.
So I don't know London very well. I don't know, certainly in the 80s what that would have been like in terms of, you know, again, the sort of culture and that kind of thing. But yeah, so she is from London, but from Perivale in London. I really like Ace in this.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting introduction. She's a young character. She's very intelligent. Obviously, I mean, the Metro 9 is a dead giveaway. But she's not as refined or as structured as like Adric was. So Adric, even though he was from a sort of the savagery part of it, in a way, you know, he had the star and all that kind of stuff. She's not like, oh my god, why is my brain blanking? She's not like Turlo. She's not like that group who were young and smart, but also, why am I forgetting this other person's name?
Zoe,
Tegan, Turlo, Adric, and Nissa. Thank you. She's not like Nissa. She's not like Zoe in the sense that like they were all really smart, but they were also quite well put together.
Yeah.
Whereas Ace is just, I mean, she's a storm of a person.
Oh yeah.
And what I think attracts people to Ace as well is the question of, and it's a similar question we get with Mel that we never answer with Mel, is Ace is from modern Earth, contemporary Earth. It's not because of the Doctor that she's off in space.
No.
It was a time storm in her bedroom that landed her on Iceworld. And it's like, that's a mystery. That's your like, okay, what? And it makes her an interesting character. Again, it's very similar to Mel. We never, because Mel and the Doctor met out of order.
Yeah.
We never know how the fuck they met originally. We've no idea how that happened. But yeah, I think the monologue she has, I think, is really well done. I did find her whole like, how could they be my parents and they named me Dorothy thing a bit silly. But also very true to a 16-year-old's thought process. But like, it was a bit silly. I mean, the fact that she was able to make a life for herself on Iceworld at all is brilliant. I do agree with you. Her dynamic with Kane was very interesting, because you can tell that there's this like cult leader, abandoned child looking for a father figure, looking for a place to belong, and she plays it very, very well. Her and Glitz is just funny. I do love the fact that like Sophie was very clear that Ace, if you're making Doctor Who now as a science fiction show, think Starfleet Academy.
Yeah.
Ace would be swearing like a fucking sailor.
Yep.
Was Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And they don't swear on Doctor Who, and they certainly didn't swear on Doctor Who back in the 80s.
No.
So she has to come up with all these different fucking things to replace "you're a fucking prick."
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? She clearly wants to call Glitz an asshole, but she can't. She calls him a build-a-back instead. It's all these different things that she tries to come up with in place of a swear, which is just so funny. And Sophie was saying that like she tried really hard to make it sound like something a young person would say, but no offense to Sophie, the generational difference between the age she was and the age she was playing kind of comes across when she says things like build back.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I like her dynamic with the Doctor. I agree with you. Very reminiscent of Vicky and Bill.
Yeah.
So reminiscent. The two of them in the corner being like, oh, we should do this and oh, we should that. It was great. In terms of Sophie's performance, I think she did really well. The only thing is that the fact she'd acted on stage before but not on screen is kind of obvious. Particularly in the scenes in the cafe where she projects her voice way more than is strictly necessary for the scene.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit OTT. Like I get it. I get why Sophie would do it. But there's a few things like that where I was like, okay, there's a couple of edges there just to knock off in terms of Sophie being comfortable in front of the camera and stuff. But look, she says her lines, she hits her mark. All that she does very, very well. I'm really looking forward to seeing more of her. Obviously, we're now back into the land of I have seen this, but I'm looking forward to us seeing and discussing Ace as a character, because I think you're right. She is a character a lot of people latch onto from an LGBTQ perspective, but also just from a mystery perspective.
Oh, yeah.
She's very much a mystery companion, and we love to see it.
Like, there's like so many different reasons why people latch onto her as well.
Now we go on to our prominent character, which is Mr. Sabalom Glitz, or Balaj. Who would you like to do first?
I'm going to do Balaj first. I would have liked to have seen a bit more of her, because
I agree.
I was very interested in this whole Mark of Cain thing. It's like that whole take the king's shilling type thing, but like it's like that it's burnt into your hand and the mark will never fade. It's like, a lot of curiosity there, and she keeps making reference to I made this, like I didn't have a choice. Or Krakow was going, everyone had a choice. She goes, I was 16. He goes, you can still choose at 16. It's going like, what was the choice? Like, I need to know more. Like, what was her life like that put her into this thing now that she's desperately trying to rebel against someone that we have been told is this very fearful person? And we can even see for ourselves, because like, when we talk about Cain, like Edward Peel did a fantastic job with the presence of the character. So you can believe every aspect of Balaj's reaction to their relationship. But I really wanted to see more of it. And Patricia's like acting with the various people in it, like with, obviously I think she's the most time with Glitz and Krakauer. I know we're not going to talk about him, but Glitz, Krakauer, and Cain, the layers for her character just seem very interesting to me. And I know that we have there's the bit where she rebels and she gets Krakauer to join in the whole thing of let's kill him. But it's like all the seeds are right there, and I just wanted a smidge more.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think what I find most interesting about her is actually what the Doctor said.
Yeah.
Which is about that mark. That she could steal Glitz's ship, but she'll never escape Cain.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because you're like, well, if she gets the fuck away from the planet, then she has escaped Cain. But it makes you wonder, what did he make her do?
Yeah.
She made the choice at 16, and obviously we're meant to see parallels between her and Ace. Ace is 16. She made the choice at 16. I mean, it does really come across, and this is why I find it interesting that the original story had that backstory bit about Ace and Glitz, because I do get the vibe of someone who hooks up with a gang leader or who joins a religious sex cult or whatever. Because the fact she's like, I was 16, like the way there's something about a woman protesting a decision she made as a teenager, where without further context, your mind naturally goes to, I was taken advantage of. And sadly, with women, taking advantage of often means taking sexual advantage. I don't think Cain took sexual advantage of her by any stretch of the imagination. But that is the vibe you kind of get from a statement like that.
Oh, like there's it's almost like a quasi Thanos and Gamora type thing, where it's like, it's the emotional control that he has over her.
So is it a case of he forced her to kill her crew or something like that? I think she's quite interesting because she's been doing this for, what did she say, 15 years or something.
Yeah.
And we don't get any indication that she had an issue with it before now. So why now? Is it because she had this love affair idea of Cain, and now Cain is making the statue of the woman that, he loved? Is it that Cain's plan is coming closer and closer to fruition, and she's just afraid of what's going to happen next? Like, what sparked her rebellion is an interesting thing.
So
do you know what I mean?
The way that I kind of read it was that Cain is getting closer to his goals. Now, there was another thing that I don't know if it was intended or not, but it's the way that I picked it up, is that all the ones in the uniforms, I imagine were recruited in a very similar thing where they were very young and they fell in love with the kind of the cult of personality that is Cain. Whereas all the soldiers, quote unquote, are the ones that are put into the cryopods for brainwashing and just become like, cannon fodder, like mindless meat sack soldiers. And I kind of got this impression like that, well, Cain's nearing his goals and he'll be all powerful. He won't need me anymore. So I can go under this new regime. I can be free to do what I want because I've helped him. And then when he slapped her down going like, no, you belong to me, then I think the realization kind of started to sit in. And then what the doctor said was like, you're his now and forever.
Yeah, because like she sort of was like, oh, I'd like to have Glitz's ship.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why? Do you know what I mean? It's very fascinating. I would have liked to have seen more from her. And I mean, no, I'll talk about that when we talk about Cain. It's a very weird thing when it comes to Cain. We'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, I think she was an interesting character. I think Patricia Quinn played her very well. There is one point when they're, I think it was like in her first scene, when they're in the sort of cafe type thing, and she's talking to Glitz. Clearly someone had her lines written on a fucking postcard or something, because like our listeners can't hear this, but I'm going to, so like I'm looking at you, right? I can see you, you're right there. But as opposed to looking at you when delivering the line, I'm looking at you and delivering the line at you.
Yeah.
And it's like, where are you looking? He's down there in front of you. Why the fuck are you looking over that way? With like this dazed expression on her face. I'm like, someone had her fucking lines on a cue card.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, they had to. They had to.
The Marlon Brando-ness of it all.
Yeah. But speaking of the owner of
the ship,
the Nosferatu.
Yep.
Interesting choice, Glitz.
Yep.
What did you think of Glitz this time around?
Space.
His third and final outing.
Space Delboy rides again. I've been trying to think of I did an analogy and I was trying to go like, I don't think that's the right person. And then it goes, oh wait, no, now I know who the right person is. I was initially going to like, so I think in the most recent span of episodes, in the most recent years of the show, shall we say, he's one of the better recurring characters that we've had because he's just endlessly fucking entertaining. I would have liked to have seen Dibber come back, I'm not going to lie. But you know what? Like, Glitz needs to shine. Dibber would just overshadow him. So yeah, Glitz needs to shine. And I like the fact that while he is a detestable person, I like the fact that he hasn't grown at all as a person. That he's still, I said like, I was kind of going like, he's like a less successful Quark. But the thing is, Quark has grown throughout the course of the series. He's more like Harry Mudd in the sense of like, you just fucking never learn, do you? So, like, everything is for profit, you know, like, oh, this could be worth a few grotzets, which I didn't actually think was a unit of currency. I just thought it was him using slang, but no, apparently grotzets are a unit of currency. But like his whole thing of like, how did you get like the map? Oh, it's 100% reliable source. That's what the guy I beat for it says. It's just, and then when they're being faced with the last of the crew members, and he's like, "Oh, it's me, it's Glitz." Like, yeah, like I think remember your old friend. Oh yeah, the guy that fucking sold me to slavery. And he was like, "And Jesus Christ, steady on, like it's not as bad as you're making it sound out to be." It's like I think if in any other shore situation, like we would go like with Glitz, oh man, like what a fucking scumbag. But it's just the fact that he's just, he'll never win by himself.
Mm.
And it is almost like the whole thing of like, but honestly, I can change. I'll try and do better. I know I know like I gave out about the concept of it, but I just do find it funny with the idea of Mel just constantly busting his balls like every time they go somewhere and he tries to do a deal. And she's, whether naively or actually pretty on the fucking money, just like, I can imagine her grabbing him by the ear and pulling him away from something.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Glitz is a weird one.
Yeah.
I think he's very fun to watch. But I think when we first met him, you described him as a bit of a Del boy.
Yeah.
He's a Del boy who thinks he's Han Solo.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's what makes him so fascinating to watch. Because he is deplorable.
Mm-hmm.
He is a horrible human being.
Yeah.
And yet, like, he could have let the Doctor fall.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't. He could have, done a million things. I mean, even in the previous stories, he could have done a million things in his own self-interest. But he doesn't.
No.
And even like I said, like, I mean, when I read the fact about him and Ace, I was like, oh.
Yeah.
But the fact was that, like, he took advantage of the situation. Oh, Kane is dead. Fucking my ship now, lads. Fucking huge. Right, brilliant.
Fucking upgrade.
Fantastic. It's the size of a planet. He's fucking loving life. Or sat on top of it. But his first plan was to take Ace home.
Mm-hmm.
Ace was stranded on Iceworld. He's like, I can take her home.
Yeah.
That's no problem. And it sounds like he had every intention of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And he sounded bored as shit about it, but he had every intention of taking her home, which I think is nice.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because I don't know if the Doctor asked him to do that or if he just suggested it himself or whatever, but I do like that. I'm not disappointed we're not going to see him again.
No.
I think 3 is enough.
Yep.
I think I agree with you that in this latest run, he probably is the most interesting recurring character we've had. I did mean to look up before we started recording, and I forgot. Because spoiler alert, Mel comes back.
Yeah.
Not in Classic Who. She comes back well later, and we will do our rambling about her without the use of the future stories. I'm sure we'll do like a rambling 2.0 about her when we eventually get there. But I'm trying to remember if she said how she got back. Or when.
I don't think I don't think Glitz is mentioned, but in the most recent batch of like the season collection DVDs, the Blu-ray ones. So initially they just did trailers, but now they've actually started to do story-based trailers that are like kind of tying into things. And Mel essentially becomes a bit of like a space dragon's den thing. So that's where she's on a space station. I think she references him in that. But yeah, I don't think he's definitely not.
Oh. Okay, so I have just Googled it.
Yeah.
Now, this is according to Google AI Overview, so take with a pinch of salt.
Yep.
Mel left Earth and returned to Earth and joined you sometime before the 2023 60th anniversary special The Giggle. Having left the Doctor in 1987. Okay. Context of return. In The Giggle, Mel explained she returned to Earth after Glitz died, getting a lift from a Zingo.
Okay.
And she was also in The Power of the Doctor, where she was at the support group.
Yeah.
He apparently died.
Mhm.
Fair enough. But yeah, no, I said I like glitz, but I'm 3 is enough.
Yeah.
3 is enough, and leave them off.
Mhm.
Okay, time for the man himself, Kane.
Gotta be Kane. Sir, like wrestling reference. As you may have gathered throughout this, I quite liked Kane. I thought he was intimidating. He did give across the menace of someone that did need to be imprisoned in the way that he was imprisoned. Like, it is very the mummy, the boogeyman that shall not be unleashed. It's really, really well acted by Edward Peel. Like, as I said, the scene with him and Ace, where it's like going, is he hypnotizing her, or is he just incredibly charismatic? Oh no, it's a combination of both. It's really well done. The scenes with him and the sculpture, that were really well done. The scene with the sculptor, who doesn't really play a vital part in this thing, or just the fact that he's like someone to show you how brutal Kane is by fucking killing him. I think well done, but no one else could see your work. Snap. Thought that was quite good. The bits with Balaj were excellent because as bad as the henchman characters can sometimes come across, it's how they react, or it's how they portray their fear of their boss. I thought you definitely got a great sense of where Kane was here, but there's just something so menacing, but at the same time charismatic about him. And I think that's why I said I wanted a bit more, because I just wanted more screen time with Kane and with the Doctor. I'm kind of sad, or not sad, but I think it's a shame that we never get the opportunity to see Kane come back in some capacity again, because I would like maybe they'll never do it, but it would have been cool to maybe if there's an audio adventure where the Doctor goes back and is instrumental in being the one to arrest Kane in the first time around, or something along the line, because again it's like that thing of, oh yeah, we've imprisoned the guy. Fuck, he's made a criminal empire out of the prison. This is not good. So yeah, I think in the most recent kind of batch of villains, he's definitely one of my favorites.
For a second there, I was like, how do you expect him to come back? His face melted off.
Yeah.
But okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Kane is an interesting villain. There's a couple of things around his setup that I don't quite think work for me, but I'll talk about that more in the overall.
Mhm.
I think though, as a villain, he is quite interesting. The whole idea of he only has to touch you and he could kill you, with his dry ice hands.
Mhm.
The fact that there is a bit of a Eldrad to him.
Mhm.
And it's interesting, there's a lot of actually parallels with
Yeah.
this and Hand of Fear in a way. But there's a bit of an Eldrad to him. There's also the fact that he's someone who's willing to play the long game. I mean, it's been 300 years or something like that.
3,000 years.
3,000 years. I mean, he's willing to play the long game to a point. And clearly he's gotten to that fucking point. His killing of the sculptor reminded me, only because as you're aware, Paddy, I'm going through a bit of a George R. R. Martin resurgence of interest at the moment. And it reminded me of a video I watched about Magor, and how he's the one who finished the construction of King's Landing, and then he had all the builders and architects killed. So they couldn't tell the secrets of all the secret passages and so on and so forth. And it really reminded me of that. And I was like, okay, I can see that. Also, it's sort of, I like the fact that he was creating this statue of her. I mean, it's been 3,000 years. Interesting that he's only creating an ice statue of her now. I mean, what took you so long, buddy? But again, it sort of feeds into that thing of if Belage or any of the others had joined him because of a physical attraction or something like that, that just shows that like that's not what he's about.
Yeah.
He uses that to his advantage, but he's not going to whatever. The one big question I had about him was, why the fuck did he kill himself?
So I've been trying to figure that out as well. And the only thing that I can think of is that he knew the Doctor was telling the truth.
Mm.
And his whole life had been built for the revenge that he wanted to take.
Mm.
And he can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably what they were going for, but I was like, the way it's portrayed on the screen is he checks the coordinates, he gives the equivalent of "oh damn," he opens the shield and just goes and stands in the window and his face melts off.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay.
I
interesting choice.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things of like, I've been denied my revenge, not in the cool Goliath way, but more in like the kind of a really bad way. Yeah, so he's denied his revenge, and rather than face the potential of becoming a prisoner again, just like that, fuck this, I'm out.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It was a cool ending.
Yeah.
But I would rather there was something in between his realization that the Doctor was right and him standing in the window.
Yeah.
I like the fact that it was self-inflicted and that it wasn't like none of our characters burnt his fucking face off.
Yeah.
But I would have rather it be something else, like he becomes overly cocky or something and he ends up pressing the button by accident. I don't know. The suicide bit didn't really vibe with me.
You know, it is missing, like, it's missing like a line of dialogue.
Yeah, there's a missing beat between.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Like you're like, okay, what the fuck? But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think he's an interesting one. I don't think he's for me a top tier villain in the sense of like, you know, a Moriarty in Holmes type of thing or anything like that. And like I said, I don't think he needed a Doctor speech at him beyond what we got naturally in the ending. But he is good though.
Yeah, I was going to say like, oh, he's kind of like a Celcheria from the Romans, but going, no. For me, Celcheria is a top tier villain. So I think he's like a tier 2, maybe tier 2.5 villain.
Yeah, he's kind of mid-like. Yeah. But yeah, I think overall though, I think a fairly good outing from our cast, which is good.
Yes.
Okay, Paddy, we have come to the last segment of the show, which is our overall thoughts. So, overall thoughts on this story and score for it out of 5. Before you give your score, just to give a placement for this season as a whole. So, after last week's poor showing, you currently have season 24 averaging 2.08 and I have it averaging 2.5. So, what are you giving it this time?
Right. So, this time we'll reverse things and I'll talk about all the bad stuff first. Because I really enjoyed this episode. I know. I did the thing that I've always do, which is I go back, I watch it twice, once for the story summary and then once for gather my thoughts. And I was like, okay, I have to judge this on the merits of the story itself and not just the fact that it's something coming after Delta and the Bannerman. So, bad stuff first. The weird cliffhanger ending was poorly shot, and it's an example that people like to use against the show in general, going, no, look at this naff shit, you know. Mel's departure, it just didn't hit for me because it just felt like, as you kind of said, I kind of like had what you were saying, which is like, in universe, I think this is what she's going for. But I don't think they gave her the courtesy of a good enough writing to be able to get that scene adequately portrayed. So it kind of goes out with a bit of a whimper, which is disappointing because, again, Mel started off very strong in her run. And again, we're in the scenario very, not to the same extent as Delta and the Bannerman, but still, like, for a 3-episode run, there's a bit of fat on the story that leaves parts of the main story underdeveloped. Like, okay, the dragon returning the girl back to the spaceport. It's a nice moment, and it helps us empathize with the dragon a bit more. We didn't need to see the girl running into every single room or putting her teddy to bed in Kane's cryopod. Nor do we need to have like weird conversations between the extra, the extras playing Kane's soldiers hunting down the dragon. Like going, we don't need that because they're cannon fodder characters. They're not meant to be anything. And it's like, okay, so their lines of dialogue, or like the space for their lines of dialogue, or for that girl running around, that's where you put in Kane's motivational line for why he's about to commit suicide. That's where you give Balazs a small bit more of an impact as to like why she is turning against Kane now and like the whatever. So, like, it's a very weird thing that in these 3-episode runs, like, why are you wasting it? No, on to the more positive side of things. I think this is great performances from the Doctor, from Ace, and from Glitz. It's got a really good villain that I liked. As I said, very strong, like a strong tier 2, so a strong mid, you'd say. And it's a very interesting story that's nice and easy to watch the whole time. Like I watched it, and I was like, when I watched it again, I was like going, I could easily watch this a third time because I'm having so much fun with it. Like it's intriguing the whole way through, and yes, there is fat in it, but it's still fun to watch, and I still enjoyed it. And I can see why it was picked, because when they did that, like the whole Doctor Who at 40 on UKTV Gold way back when, this was the story that they picked to represent Sylvester. I was going, what? There are other stories that I would have picked, but I can see why this story was picked. So I'm giving it a 3.75.
Okay.
Yep.
Let's see what that does to your overall average. Okay, that brings your season for you up to a 2.5 overall.
Okay. Yeah, I was kind of thinking about going, did it crack a 4 for me? And I was like, there's a couple of bits there that, again, like was it a 5? No, I don't think it's a 5.
No.
Was it a 4? Possibly, but there's just one or two things there that just kind of dipped it from being the 4 for me.
Yeah. So okay, I said no when you said is it a 5, so slight spoiler, I haven't given it a 5.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with the bits I liked first. Yes. I liked the Doctor, I liked Ace, I liked Glitz, I liked Kane. I liked the premise overall. There's a couple of bits I didn't like about it, I'll come to in a second. I did like the end of the departure scene between Mel and the Doctor. I agree with you that they didn't give her a long runway into it. But I did like the departure. I liked Mel with Ace. I liked Mel with Glitz, to be honest. She kind of has a good dynamic with him. So I liked all the relationships and stuff. I thought that was good. The melting of Kane's face, I thought was brilliant. The idea of a guy, because he kind of gives slightly vampiric vibes, but they did this guy who like has to keep his core temperature well below freezing, and stuff like that. I found really, really interesting. And I agree with you. It's a really fun, easy watch. You sit down, pop up your feet, put it on. You can watch away. It's not a turn your brain off type thing.
No,
but it's just a bit of fun. It's probably for me it's a bit different from Time in the Rani. But again, the fun component from Time in the Rani is in this as well.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? In terms of the bits I wasn't a big fan of, I agree Mel wasn't really given a whole lot to do by herself. Mel was kind of there to prop up Ace, which is fine, but like it's another Mel being sidelined, which I'm not a fan of. We already had that last week. And at least in Paradise Towers, Mel was sidelined, but doing her own thing.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? And she was actually progressing or uncovering plot as she made her way up the tower. So there was that. The other thing, there was the whole like, why the fuck did he kill himself? The other thing that, sort of going back to the premise, I said I like the premise for the most part. There's a weird aspect of this that I don't quite get, which is, so Cain is this criminal who was banished to the dark side of a planet, 3,000 years ago, along with a map to the creature that has his key to escape. The whole idea was, the problem was, he could never attack the dragon because the dragon blasts lasers and he has to stay cold. And the dragon is in the more heated underbelly of Iceworld, right? And this has been going on for 3,000 years. And yet somehow, either before this or during this, a pseudo-independent shopping mall built up around it, with staff and caretakers and customers out doing their shopping, having their lunch. This doesn't seem like, he turned his prison into his private little army. It's that he turned his prison into somewhere for him to build an army, but also it has a gift shop.
So,
and people are allowed to come and go as they please.
So the way that I kind of had that in my head is, okay, Cain, like on his previous planet, they were like part of he was the head of the most feared gang around. So 3,000 years, we don't know what the level of civilization is on he's presumably abandoned on that planet. And or maybe it's an abandoned planet. So then he probably has to start everything over from scratch for however long it is. Now, again, it depends. There's maybe a bit more explanation. No, not maybe. A bit more explanation is needed on screen to say, okay, when was the spaceport first built? Because if it's already been there with the last couple of 100 years, then what I'm about to say makes a bit more sense. If it's been there for thousands of years, makes no sense whatsoever. But if Cain is trying to rebuild his criminal empire, having a legitimate front from which to slowly do it without bringing, the fucking unwanted attention of the law to him is quite a smart thing to do. It's like what you'd see the mafia doing, in the sense that they have legitimate business interests that cover all their illicit activities. So that way there's a good financial paper trail for them to do this. No, that's an awful lot of heavy lifting on my part, because that is stuff that I equate from other things that I read. But again, that could be answered with 2 or 3 lines of dialogue, say, removed from other people's wasted screen time.
Yeah, because if you think about it, the ship is his ship. Yep. He didn't build a ship.
No.
The ship was there. So yeah. So that I wasn't a big fan of. In terms of the 2 randos going around, trying to hunt the dragon, I understand why they were there. And I think it's important that they were there, because they are the other view of Balaj, which is they're doing their job. This is their job. There's no moral qualms about it. There's no whatever. And so they're the sort of day-to-day view of the majority of the, they're only cannon fodder because we know Cain doesn't give a shit about them. They don't know that. And so they're doing their job to the best of their abilities. Their abilities, kind of lacking, not gonna lie. But I think there was too much of them.
Yeah.
I think the scene of them being selected to go And then maybe 2 cutaways would have been fine. But I think their scenes went on a bit too long, but I understand why they were there. The other thing I didn't like was this is Mel didn't have a whole lot of runway. And the little girl, like, I like the fact that, again, it, like you said, it shows that the dragon isn't a villain or whatever, but like, oh no, it's because the girl showcased something for me, right? Which is Belage clearly has an issue with Kane. They have this restricted room, but they're allowed in.
Yeah.
They can go in. They didn't fucking hack the door. They can go in while he's sleeping. And they can just turn up the controls. They could have done this at any fucking point in time over the last 3,000 years. The way in which, like, because it's not like it was hidden behind a panel and we saw them trying to splice into it. No. Your man just walked in, raised the dials, and stood there like a fucking numpty waiting for it to finish. And I'm like, leave the room.
Yeah.
Leave the room. Leave the room. Even if Kane wakes up, even if he turns down the temperature again, leave the room. Or, other plan, have a huge fucking gun. Or a laser, or a heat beam, or something. Like, it was just so... I got so frustrated, because I was like, they could have done this at any time. And why is your man a fucking idiot? Like, I like that Balaj sent him to do it. I thought that was quite funny. But yeah, so those are the things I wasn't a big fan of. So it's just some of the setup of the story, the logic behind why he has an inner sanctum that anyone can walk into, but it's forbidden. And a little bit too much for me of the extra characters. Not as much as you, but a little bit too much for me of the extra characters. So I also gave it 3.75. I was going to give it a 4, but then those things that irritate me actually irritate me quite a bit. So I brought it down to 3.75.
Two things really quickly. One, just in relation to the extra characters. And these two things are both kind of related to the Alien franchise. One is when asking, like, going, oh, how many ant hunts have you been on? Like, ant is like a acronym for like a alien type thing, and it just reminds you of like going, oh, is this going to be like another bug hunt from Aliens? But the second thing was, and it's kind of into your point about why your man just kind of fucking stood there as Kane got up and fucking killed him, and it kind of brought me, it just immediately triggered something in my head, going, thinking back to our conversation all the way back to Horror of Fang Rock, and I said that there was the really bitchy woman character in it kind of reminded me of Lambert from Alien, who just kind of like just screams and is a bit of a burden to everyone. And especially if you think about the scene where Parker dies, where he keeps telling Lambert to get out of the way, but Lambert doesn't. And that's like, it just popped into my head there, kind of going like, he thought that, okay, Balazs said that he can't stand heat, he'll fucking die. Shit, he's getting up. Why isn't he dying? And to your point, yeah, maybe he should have had a gun on him. But it's like, I can understand like the terror of the thing that is meant to be dying isn't dying. I'm fucked. So that's the way that I kind of, but again, no, absolutely fucking bring a gun as a backup, but I can see why he panicked and died the way that he died.
So my 2.75 brings my average 2.81. So I don't know, like this season, 2.81, I mean, I think Delta fucking ruined it because it was going quite fine until then. You know, Time in the Rani, we both agreed was quite good. Paradise Towers, it was okay. It wasn't a brilliant story, but it wasn't terrible. It was sort of middle of the range. And then Delta just came and fucked it up the ass.
Yeah.
So overall, I think for Sylvester's opening season, I would still say it's a good season. I would still recommend that people watch it. Just skip Delta.
Yeah.
Delta adds no value.
No, absolutely.
Unless you're going on the journey of Mel, where she doesn't have that many stories, so don't skip Delta. But like, she doesn't do a whole lot in it anyway. But speaking of Mel,
yes.
So next time we're going to be doing our rambling for Mel. where we have 6 stories,
Yeah.
I think you said?
Yep. So this is
Um,
a
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yep. So very reminiscent of Joe.
Liz Shaw.
Liz Shaw. Yeah, Caroline John. I don't know why the fucking Joe came into my head. And I think, was it the same for Harry Sullivan?
I think so.
It was. It was the same for Harry Sullivan. Yep.
So yeah, so that'll be next time. And then after that, we will be going into season 25.
Mm-hmm. Which, it's Remembrance of the Daleks.
Yes, which is actually... Okay, so this is it. So a lot of people thought that this story was the 150th story.
Mm-hmm.
It's not.
No.
It just isn't. Depending on how you rank it, it's, either... I mean, we have it as 147 because Trial of a Time Lord is one big long story.
Yeah.
If Trial of a Time Lord was actually 4 stories,
mm-hmm.
which is the way that we discuss it, but it's not. It's meant to be one long arc. It would be the 150th story, but Remembrance is really going to be, in my mind, kind of the 40th anniversary episode.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk more about it in a couple of weeks as to why that is.
Yeah.
But until then, see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.